Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, some sports guy Hickman. Happy to be back to do a Wild Wednesday, Hump Day Wednesday, whatever you want to call it, episode of Locked On Texans, your daily Texans podcast and news show. Now find us on YouTube as well at Locked On Texans. Subscribe and like. And before we get to today's episode, I want to let you guys know about the NFL Sunday pregame show that talks about every game and every team in depth. Check out the new Locked On NFL Sunday show live every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. with no sketches, no celebrity cameos, and no fluff. Just straight football, baby. Every Sunday morning with hosts Cody Rourke and Ross Jackson. Follow and subscribe to the Locked On NFL on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications to be notified when the show goes live every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And, of course, I am joined by none other than the greatest co-host in the world, Cody M. Davis. You see him right there. Welcome into the show. What we got on the rundown?
And on this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans, John and I are going to look ahead and give some quick keys to victory on how the Houston Texans can actually upset the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. And then we're going to close out this latest installment of Locked On Texans. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to milk as much stuff as possible regarding the Houston Texans season opener win. I see you laughing. The Houston Texans season opener victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars by just talking about what does that one win mean for not only the Houston Texans, but to the fan base, to reporters, to everyone involved, given the turmoil that's been surrounding this organization for over a year now. But to get this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans kicked off, John and I are going to take a look at the latest roster change regarding the Houston Texans. And on yesterday, it was announced that the Houston Texans have brought back Jaleel Johnson, who spent the last 2 weeks as a member of the New Orleans Saints practice squad after he was cut by the Texans because he did not make the 53-man roster. And John, listeners, let me be the first one to say that I am happy that Jaleel Johnson is back, because for you guys who don't know, John and I, with the exception of Kiki QT, Jaleel Johnson might have been the most surprising, one of the most surprising names that did not make the 53-man roster when it was announced about 2 weeks ago. Because given his play throughout training camp, throughout OTAs, and of course throughout those 3 preseason games, we thought without a doubt that Jaleel Johnson was going to be one of the guys to make the roster. Unfortunately, he was not. I love the fact that Jaleel Johnson is back. However, I do hate knowing that he came after Vincent Taylor sustained that gruesome ankle injury that is going to have him out for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, the great thing about this signing is he's ready to play for Houston right now. By that, I mean he already has chemistry with the players around him on their front seven and the coaching staff. There isn't going to be a big learning curve because he was just with this organization a little bit over 14 days ago. And I think for Houston, getting a player back that knows your system, knows exactly what you want to do, knows how you want it to be done, and understands where the defense is currently and the defensive goals, you're getting that player that you just had, plug-and-play guy. And I think for Jaleel Johnson, who you mentioned, we were both shocked at the fact that he did not get retained by Houston. We know his playing time in Minnesota was he had a lot of experience in Minnesota, played a good number of snaps in Minnesota. I thought he played better than Vincent. At one point, I was thinking to myself, he would make the roster over Taylor. I hate the fact that
both.
Right, and I hate the fact that Houston won't have those two guys together on the field at least for the next 8 weeks playing, because I thought they played well together in the preseason. But for Jaleel Johnson specifically, he has 7 total tackles in the preseason, 2 fumble recoveries. He's a player that fits right into the system. Can play that 1-and-3 technique. very good against the run. Okay, and that's something that Houston wants to limit from what we saw last year. Houston was able to get ran up the gut all the time. And so for Houston to be in a position where they're able to bring him back, it's like you lose one guy, you pick up the same caliber type of guy. And you may even get the better guy for what you may want to do. So happy that Jaleel Johnson is back. And I didn't want him riding on New Orleans practice squad. I don't want him to do much with New Orleans. When you leave Texas, I don't want you to go to Dallas or New Orleans. And so happy to have him back. I would like to mention really quick, throughout the entire offseason, Cody, we talked a lot about what we wanted to see out of this backfield. We knew that this backfield's old. We knew that this backfield had experience. We knew that I'm sorry. We knew that this backfield was a little bit of differently dynamic when you add in what David Johnson can do, and then the age difference between Philip Lindsay and the other two backs. We also just knew that Houston wanted to run the ball and really get their running backs involved. All three running backs scored touchdowns on Sundays, and I think that's something worth mentioning. And I also believe that this may be Titus Howard's Pro Bowl year. On Sunday,
What?
he whooped Malcolm Brown ass, man. I'm sorry for my language, but with him and Laremy Tunsil on their left side, you see why Houston really wanted to keep him over there. And I'm confident by saying that this may be his Pro Bowl year because in years past, whether it's been Davenport, whether it's been Sharpen, whether it's been any other lineman that was drafted to Houston, they all had to run into one guy. That was Mike Devlin. And at that point, Mike Devlin was a roadblock. He was not meant to get you over the hump. He was meant to keep you at that hump, which speaks a lot about Bill O'Brien and the coaching staff that he had around him. But now with James Campen, we know that we're going to see progression. We're already seeing it. And Sunday was the first of what I believe will be many of games where we look back and say, well, Malcolm Brown won this battle majority of the time. I wanted to mention those 2 points from the game. Like all three running backs scored in different ways, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air, and what I saw out of Titus Howard. And I'm not going to mention, y'all, Laremy Tunsil's still that guy, okay? Don't even worry about it. Whatever you thought the NFL ranked him, that man is still that guy at left tackle, Cody. And we're back and better than ever. And all eyes right now are on the gridiron as teams are back on the field to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated roster and interface, even more odds, even more props, and even more contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website right now or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit. Just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. That is NFL100. BetOnline is the easiest and fastest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, to this latest installment of Locked On Texans. And the Houston Texans went from playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of, if not the worst team in the league, to the Cleveland Browns, who everyone expect to be one of the best teams for this 2021 season. And Cleveland is coming off a game where they dropped their season opener against the Kansas City Chiefs, losing 33-29. But John, listeners, I actually went back, watched a couple plays from that games, and I thought to myself, looking at what I was able to see on Sunday from the Houston Texans and comparing that over to them going up against the Cleveland Browns, I still have Cleveland winning this game, but there are 2 factors that I'm looking at that can actually help improve the Texans' chances of pulling out another upset. And one of the first keys to victories that I want to look at is Houston's offensive line. And John, you just finished talking about the offensive line, how great guys like Titus Howard has been, of course, Laremy Tunsil, and of course, we know we even in this first game, we are seeing a better version of the offensive line because of the coaching of James Campen. And the reason why I'm looking at this offensive line is because on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, the Houston Texans will be going up against arguably, if not the best D line in the NFL. And this is a D line that recorded not one, but 2 sacks on Patrick Mahomes that cost Kansas City 13 yards. And that was with the offensive line that they have been raving about this entire offseason. A great defensive line is going to be hard to run against that team, which means we're going to need to see another spectacular performance from Tyrod Taylor. Taylor needs to find some kind of way to rekindle that same magic he showcased against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He needs to come out and make quick decisions. He needs to come out and still connect with Brandon Cooks on those deep pass attempts. And look, Brandon Cooks, this is a guy who recorded, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 133 receiving yards last game. He needs to recreate that same magic as well. Once again, I still think this is going to be a game that the Houston Texans drop. But if the offensive line come out and do their job, and if Tyrod Taylor can some way find and rekindle that magic that he had against the Jacksonville Jaguars, just maybe the Texans can pull off an upset in Cleveland.
Well, like you said, you're going against. If we're going based off of last year, week 1 you play the worst team in the NFL. Week 2 you're going to play a team that made it to the playoffs last year, had a very dominant run game, and were already stacked up front with Myles Garrett and them boys, right? Then in the offseason, they go out, sign Jadeveon Clowney, who had 4 total tackles, and on Sunday's game, they had 6 QB hits along with those 2 sacks. And we know that sacking, getting to Patrick Mahomes may not be that hard, but sacking Patrick Mahomes and actually bringing him down is a little bit harder than what getting to him is, right? And overall, when we look at this team, it has to be another week of all hands on deck. So it has to be another week of Farrell Brown getting involved in the blocking game, Eclair getting involved in the blocking game, Akins getting involved in the blocking game, Rex Burkhead getting involved in the blocking game. I'm sorry. Your running backs, everybody, like with this 12-man personnel, everybody getting involved on touching somebody, because you're looking at a defensive front that has Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. They have a great defensive backfield. They're able, Denzel Ward, who he's progressive. They're able to do a lot of things defensively because they have talent at all 3 levels. And when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you can make a case that they have talent at 1 level, but it lacks at the other 2. Or they have talent at 2 levels, but it lacks at the other 1 tremendously. With the Browns, that's not the case. Now, we'll say this on the flip side, defensively, what Houston has to do, I think personally, is keep Baker Mayfield in that pocket. Baker Mayfield is still a short quarterback, and I love Baker. I'm a fan of Baker Mayfield. I think that he has an opportunity to be very good for the Cleveland Browns long term. But Baker Mayfield is at his best when he's rolling out, getting comfortable outside the pocket, right? And when Baker is inside, if you can collapse on him a little bit and moving out the pocket and moving up in the pocket is 2 different Baker Mayfields. Whenever he has to force up, that's when we see a little bit more of the head scratcher Baker Mayfield. And that's what Houston has to do, which is great. You just got Jaleel Johnson back. And if Baker steps up, then you have a big body like Jaleel Johnson who can, cause some damage. You got a very quick Ross Blacklock who I saw on Sunday, didn't get the 2 sacks that he should have gotten, but he was in Trevor Lawrence's face a lot. He was able to use his hands up front and penetrate that offensive line. I'm sorry. So Houston, I'm not going to say they have a shot, but this game for Houston doesn't have to be a blowout loss. This game for Houston can come down to the 4th quarter decisions of both sides, and maybe they do have a shot. If Houston wins this game on Sunday, and Cleveland starts 0-2, and Houston starts 2-0, hypothetically speaking, of course, I think the conversation of what this team can be or will be changes a little bit. And I'm not picking them to win, but I do think we're going to get a better showing than what we probably originally thought we were going to get out of Houston.
John, really quick, let me ask you this question because I thought about what is more important for the defense as well. And I know you say, keeping Baker Mayfield in the pocket, but I'm looking at this from a standpoint. I think it might be a little bit more important for the Texans to focus on containing the run game because in the season opener, the loss against Kansas City, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, those two guys combined for nearly 120 yards on the ground. And looking at the damage that they did against the Texans last year, and yes, I understand this is I'm gonna just go ahead on and say it. This is a better defensive team just due to the coaching alone. No, they don't have JJ Watt, but it's like you lose a generational talent, but you replace that generational talent with a lot of good guys who are good at their individual tasks for that individual game. And of course, like I just mentioned, the coaching is still a lot better than what they was working with last year. John, I think it's going to be more important for them to contain the run, try as much as possible to limit the damage between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on Sunday. If they do that, then I think that's going to improve their chances of winning this game.
Well, I think here's the thing about the Browns offense, right? You got to either live with something or you're going to die by something. So you can live with that run game. You can live with it because 9 times out of 10, what we saw is going to happen regardless. That's why Nick Chubb just got his new deal, right? Kareem Hunt got a new deal, I think, as well. I think 2 years ago. I know him and Cleveland worked something out, so they're both on a new contract. But what I saw out of Cleveland last year is they're going to run their ball. It's going to be effective, and eventually it may wear you down. But when Baker starts hitting Higgins, or when he starts hitting Jarvis Landry, or those boys, or he gets Austin Hooper involved, like when Baker is finally getting to a comfortable groove where he has command of that offense, then I think you're in trouble. Because if you're losing at both throughout the air, in the air and on the ground, you may find yourself in a world of trouble. When does Odell come back? I need to check on that.
But even if Odell comes back, and I don't know what it is, but Baker and Odell has never looked great together on the field. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, even you could go back and look at the numbers and just look at the highlights.
That's very true.
Baker looks like a better quarterback when Odell is not on the field. And maybe it's because, look, when Odell is healthy, he's by far top 5, top 10 wide receiver in his league. Maybe he's forcing the ball too much to Odell. I don't know. But I just find it kind of funny that they've been together, 3 years now, and they're still trying to establish this chemistry amongst one another.
Well, be that as it may, before Odell got hurt last year, he was actually having a very good year. But when you get in Njoku, Landry, Hunt involved in the passing game, which we know he can be a dangerous threat as well, Austin Hooper, any of those guys that at any given moment, if Baker gets a groove and commands that field, like we believe our front seven will have a tough job, which is going to be true. But you can live with your front seven having a tough job, having a tough day, if not your entire 11 on that field not having having a tough day. And that's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see the defense in a compromising situation where all the guys, and I mean all the players, are having a rough day because they're not able to get after Baker Mayfield. They're not able to make him uncomfortable and get him outside the pocket and make him do some things that he's still working on growing. Working on growing to learn and do in the NFL. And so the Browns are a very intriguing team because it seems like they can go 12-5 now. Used to be 12-4. They can go 12-4. I'm sorry, 12-5, 13-4, or they can go 7-8. Depending on how the wind blows. And we have a lot of expectations for the Browns after what we saw from 1 year. So this isn't a completely L for Houston. I think it will be, but I wouldn't be shocked if Houston goes up there and if they can rekindle and mirror some of the things that they did on Sunday, if they make it a harder game to win rather for the Browns. Today, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all of the entertainment you love without the hassle with DirecTV Stream that brings you live TV and on demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract, so stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. And whenever you talk about Built Bar, you know that that's one of our loves and favorites here at the Locked On Podcast Network. You have 9 delicious flavors to choose from. If you don't know about all the flavors, you're missing out. Coconut almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. There's something for everyone. And if you haven't tried all the flavors, go ahead and get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your first order. That's promo code LOCK15, LOCKED 15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. Betting on the Houston Texans doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Best podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Specials, team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Best podcast brought to you by betonline.ag wherever you get podcasts.
Alrighty, Texans fans, before we close out this latest installment of Locked On Texans, I know, I understand it, I get it. At this point on a Wednesday, you might be tired of talking about Sunday's win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But ladies and gentlemen, look, like I said on Wednesday, like I said on Tuesday, and like I said on Monday, with the Houston Texans winning this game, we're going to milk it out as much as possible. But the last topic that John and I want to discuss in regards to the Texans win over Jacksonville is the impact. What does that do for Nick Caserio and David Culley? And I get it, for a lot of you guys, it might not have moved the needle at all, especially when you consider that this is a team that has went through so much since what, John? Ever since they blew that 24-0 lead against Kansas City, which is coming up on what? In January is going to be 2 years. But for me personally, John, that win on Sunday did 2 things for me. One, it restored my confidence that this is a team that could possibly win 5 games for this upcoming season because, you know, to begin this show off, we talked about the departure of Jaleel Johnson. And when I was looking at the 53-man roster, especially looking at 5 running backs, 5 wide receivers, and at the time it was only 4, given that we didn't know when Anthony Miller was coming back, I'm looking at this team and like, this might be a team that might be tanking, but I think the tanking Houston Texans can go out the window. And 2, and most importantly, for me, it just also gave me a little bit more faith in the Texans rebuild. Because with Nick Caserio at the helm, this is a team that's going to be able to still stay true to their real build, but also at the same time put together a competitive team that's not going to go out there and be like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who went 1-15 last year, or like the Cleveland Browns a couple years ago that went 0-16. For me, that win on Sunday just helped restore my confidence and my faith.
Well, if it did that for you, imagine what it did for a first-year head coach that never been a coordinator, but has been around football outside of his playing days for nearly 30 years. And a general manager that originally was going to come to Houston last year. NFL hit Houston with the Patriots hit Houston with the tampering charges. They finally got their guy. So Houston knew all along that this was the man that we want to lead our organization at this general manager position. Comes in, makes I don't know how many transactions and trades and contract reconstructing and moving on from players. Up until the weeks, you hear everything, even now, about Deshaun Watson and his playing status. Even though people with common sense know that it ain't no playing status. We're gonna ask, right? Everything that these two guys have had to endure and take on for things they had nothing to do with. Like if you ever talk to me about something and there's drama going on and I have nothing to do, my key words are always it ain't none of my business. But it was their business. They took it on, and a lot of people here, even here on Locked On Network, a lot of people chose Houston to go 0-17. A lot of people chose Houston to, drop the ball. But it didn't matter to them. The only thing that mattered to them was getting their first dub. It's getting the win. And a lot of coaches, first-year head coaches, don't go out there and get wins on their first game. Right? As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I have the numbers right here. That's what I was looking up doing when you was talking, Cody. But a couple of years ago, historically, what year was that? The 2000 and I want to say 18 season. But historically, first year head coaches don't do good. They don't. And I look at this win for Cody and I say, man, congratulations, enjoy it, move on. But you deserve this because you took on a hot mess, working towards fixing it every day, and people doubted you every step of the way. I'm Locked On. I'm sorry, guys. I am John, some sports guy Hickman. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On. I'm sorry, our Twitter page is still suspended. So follow me on Twitter at some sports guy. Take time out of your day. Go subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube. Like and comment as well, and like us on Facebook.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.